Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a conflict that's heating up over a border that, get this, one side claims doesn't even exist. I mean, think about that. Our border with Pakistan doesn't exist. It's an imaginary line. That's a huge statement coming from a senior Taliban minister. And it's really the key to unlocking this whole dangerous conflict. He didn't stop there either. He even claimed Afghan territory stretches deep inside Pakistan. And believe me, this isn't just talk. That so-called imaginary line has become a very, very real battlefield. We're talking airstrikes, artillery, the works. But here's the thing. This isn't some simple border squabble. No, this is a conflict that's been fueled by over a century of history, some pretty big ambitions, and a ton of high-stakes regional power plays. So that's the big question we're tackling in this explainer, right? What exactly is this line they're fighting over, and why, all of a sudden, has it just caught fire? To get to the bottom of it, we're going to look at what's happening right now, on the ground, and then we're going to have to rewind the clock, way back, over a century actually, to see how this all got started. All right, let's get right into it. The situation on the ground right now, it is incredibly tense. You know, after months of things just simmering, smaller attacks, rising tensions, well, the pot has finally boiled over. Both sides are trading serious blows, and, you guessed it, they're each pointing the finger at the other. So, in early October, this thing just erupted into open conflict. And I mean open conflict. We're talking artillery fire being exchanged, airstrikes launched from both sides. It's honestly the most intense fighting we've seen along this border since the Taliban took back control in 2021. And to make a bad situation even worse, this is all happening at the same time as a massive refugee crisis. The UN is warning that with over 2 million Afghans being sent back from Iran and Pakistan, it's just pouring gasoline on an already raging fire. But to really, really get why this is happening, you have to understand that the fuse for this powder keg was lit a long, long time ago. And it was all started with the stroke of a pen by the British Empire. And this is it, the Durand Line. It's a 2,670-kilometer border that was drawn up way back in 1893 by a British diplomat. And right here, this is the core of the whole problem. Pakistan says, yep, this is our official internationally recognized border. But Afghanistan? Nope. For over 130 years, every single government in Kabul has said, no way, we do not accept this line. So how did they draw this line? Well, not with a lot of care, that's for sure. They gave very little thought to the actual geography or the history of the people living there. In fact, one of the wilder details is that it was supposedly based on the effective range of British rifles at the time, not, based on where communities actually were. And the impact? It was a total disaster. It sliced the ethnic Pashtun community right in two, dividing towns, cities, and even families. So when you hear that Afghanistan has never officially recognized it, well, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, so you've got this 100-year-old grievance. How does that play into what's happening today? Well, it directly fuels the ambitions of the key groups on the ground. Let's talk about the big players, the Afghan Taliban and another group you need to know, the TTP. That stands for Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. A huge piece of this puzzle is Pashtun nationalism. Pashtuns make up the biggest slice of the pie in Afghanistan, about 40%. But, and this is key, they're not an outright majority. And that creates this really powerful motivation to try and unite all the Pashtun people, including the millions living on the other side of that line in Pakistan. And this brings us to a really ambitious idea, the creation of a greater Afghanistan. The dream, for some, is to basically erase the Durand Line, reclaim those Pashtun territories from Pakistan, and extend Afghanistan's border all the way to the Indus River. It's a massive, game-changing vision. So what are the strategic plays here? Well, there are a few big ones. First, if you unite all the Pashtun people, you suddenly have a much stronger majority inside Afghanistan, which helps you lock down political power. Second, and this one is huge, if you can gain control over parts of Balochistan, you suddenly give landlocked Afghanistan what it has always dreamed of, a direct route to the sea. Now, how do you make this happen? Well, one way is for the Afghan Taliban to give shelter and support to the TTP, the Pakistani Taliban. They're separate groups, but they share an ideology. The TTP's goal is to overthrow the Pakistani state, so by helping them, Kabul can stir up trouble for its neighbor. So, with these big ambitions in the mix, it's really no surprise that this whole thing has spiraled into a super dangerous cycle of violence. It's become a classic tit for tat, with each side hitting back harder after every move. You can just see the escalation here. It really started picking up speed. In March 2024, Pakistan launches airstrikes on TTP hideouts inside Afghanistan. Fast forward August 2025, and Pakistan actually changes its rules of engagement, launching a massive counterterrorism operation. And then it all comes to a head in October 2025. The TTP ambushes Pakistani troops, and Pakistan hits back hard with airstrikes, leading to the worst border clashes we've seen in years. It's a textbook case of escalation. And the human cost in all of this, it's just staggering. Just think about this number. Over 2,600 Pakistani security personnel have been killed in the last 4 years alone. And most of those attacks came from militants based across the border. When you hear a number like that, it starts to become pretty clear why Pakistan feels like it has to act, even if it means acting alone. Now, a conflict like this never happens in a vacuum, right? It's already starting to pull in some major international players, and every single one of them has their own agenda. It's starting to look a little like a modern version of the old Great Game for influence in Central Asia. So let's look at this international chessboard for a second. You've got Qatar and Turkey trying to play mediator, trying to broker a ceasefire. You've got China, which has poured tons of money into the region and desperately needs stability. The US might even be looking for a way back in. There's been talk about their interest in Bagram Air Base again. And then, of course, there's India. For them, this could be a golden opportunity to get access to rare earth minerals and, more importantly, put a whole lot of pressure on their number one rival, Pakistan. And that potential team-up between India and Afghanistan, that is a really fascinating development to watch. I mean, if they were to align, they could squeeze Pakistan from both sides, from its eastern and its western borders. A classic pincer move. And isn't it interesting that the Taliban's foreign minister just happened to visit India right as these clashes with Pakistan were heating up? Maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe it's the sign of a huge strategic shift in the region. So this all brings us to the final and probably the most important question of all. Where is this heading? What's the end game here for Afghanistan and for the entire region? Okay, so there was a ceasefire brokered back in October, but let's be real, it is incredibly fragile. Small-scale fights are still breaking out all the time. A real, lasting peace feels, well, a long way off. And a big reason why is that you've got factions inside the Afghan Taliban who are openly backing groups like the TTP. How can you enforce a truce when your own side doesn't fully buy in? You know, this quote here says a lot. Sometimes power lies in holding back. Just like the sink-in. Afghanistan has not had a single year of peace since 1978. Not one. That's decades of non-stop conflict. And now, it feels like its leadership is steering the country straight into the path of another major war. And that really is the ultimate question, isn't it? In their quest to erase what they call an imaginary line on a map, is Afghanistan about to cross a very, very real one, the line that separates a bold play for power from complete and utter ruin? That's the question that's now hanging over this entire volatile region.